You're listening to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, a travel podcast with hosts Stephen Seagraves, Fosma Moon, and Seth Miller.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that better?
Yeah. There was definitely a lag.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. I have Wi-Fi. What do you figure? I'm ready to go whenever.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Hello, and welcome to episode 433 of Dots, Lines, and Destinations. I am Stephen Seagraves, joined by Mr. Seth Miller. How you doing, Mr. Miller?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing all right from the hot Atlanta.
I was gonna say, have you picked up a draw yet?
Not yet. It's definitely hot, though. I tell you. Humidity kills you.
Is the draw you drag out of Atlanta different than the one you had from Texas?
I think so. I think this is more of this is definitely more south. Texas has its own thing going on, but yeah, I've noticed people here have definitely had like a Georgia, Alabama, y'all when it gets deeper. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah,
it's different. It's definitely different.
Fair. Okay. Yeah. Well, good luck with that. I hope it's not infective, infectious. But
my brother's actually down in your neck of the woods, or where you're from, neck of the woods today. He was going to meet up with me for dinner, but he had to go to Jacksonville.
So, well, there you go.
Poor guy. Let's follow up a little bit on last week's show. We talked about Go First. What's going on? Like, they were going bankrupt, but now they're deregistering. What's happening?
So this is interesting, and sort of has some implications going back to the Russia stuff after the Ukraine invasion as well. Apparently, as Go First was on its way into bankruptcy proceedings, several lessors tried to reclaim their aircraft under the Cape Town Convention.
Okay.
Cape Town Convention is for the airlines or for the countries that are signatories. It basically creates a common set of rules around how leasing is handled.
Okay.
And one of the things it allows for is recovery of aircraft. The lessor has certain rights that the country agrees to enforce.
Makes sense.
One of them is if airline stops paying us, you agree to let us come take our stuff back. And apparently, Go First had several pending deregistration requests, and India's government did not respond to them within the 5 business day window that the convention, I don't know that it's specifically written in the convention, but that is expected of participants. And then now that they got their bankruptcy filing approved, they're basically what would in the U.S. be Chapter 11, right? Government protected reorganization. And so the planes no longer are eligible for being reclaimed because now everything's covered by the bankruptcy proceedings. So there was, and the argument being made by the lessors was this was old stuff. This wasn't because of bankruptcy. This was because they'd stopped paying us. And, blah, blah, blah. We should have been able to get these planes back. And now the leasing companies have some sort of joint group that sort of monitors compliance with the Cape Town Convention. And they are saying that they're going to put India on warning for failure to act appropriately. And this could ultimately drive leasing prices for Indian Airlines higher because the lessors can no longer depend on the government actually doing the thing right.
I see. So they're basically saying it's like a warning. Warning label on it. Yeah.
On a country. But it's for the entire country, which is the interesting part, right? It's not just one airline. So, if you're Air India or Vistara, which I guess are owned by the same people now, or if you're, Indigo, who has got, reasonable financials, it would seem, in the backing of the Indigo group, which, is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway.
I think you're right.
No, it's someone else's money. I don't think Indigo Group, which is the U.S.-based LCC, whatever, is an investor in Indigo of India. But anyway, Indigo, the airline, and Indigo, the bigger sort of hedge fund that invested airlines. Confusing. But anyway, yes, those airlines might now face higher leasing costs because the lessors don't trust India, the government, as much. So that's an interesting twist, and we'll have to see how that plays out. There's also something interesting. Apparently, the pilots in many cases have contracts that sort of, and we've seen this actually. I think one of the U.S. carriers that's promising crazy signing bonuses is adding but if you leave, you have to pay that back clause.
That's one way to do it.
Makes sense. And people freaked out about that. But apparently some of the pilots of Go First had a contract, and the company wasn't providing the sort of statement of prior work and releasing them. So they were unable to prove like, no, I've been a pilot for for X months or X years at this airline. Here's my proof. They weren't being able to get that, and basically, Go First wasn't letting them out of the contracts to go get jobs elsewhere where they could actually make money, even though Go First wasn't paying them.
That seems pretty crappy.
Yeah. So, hooray. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on with pilot contracts in India right now. Actually, Air India was doing some weird stuff too. I don't entirely understand. Trying to get their pilots to sort of sign on to new contracts from their existing situations.
So, like, how does this work then? I mean, Go First is dead.
No, man. They said they're going to come back. 2 weeks, 10 days, something like the 25th. I think they're selling seats again.
But I mean, how long have they been dead so far?
About 10 days. So I think they grounded their fleet maybe on the 3rd, 5th, something like that. Early May.
I mean, I think the question for me is like, when do you really call them dead?
Sure. I mean, Jet Airways isn't dead yet, right?
No, Jet's definitely dead.
Their CEO, the guy that they finally brought in a new CEO to replace as they were getting ready to relaunch, and he's left again. After several months waiting for financing to finally get squared away.
I think my point is, though, like, I can understand some of the pilot contract stuff. Like, hey, we're still working through this. We're not going to release you just yet. It's coming.
Yeah, I think that's really hard to do if you're not paying them.
That's true. I think that's the caveat, right? Like, if you were paying them to sit on the ground, it's one thing. But if you're not paying them, they're just sitting idle, and they're like, hey, I'm not earning a paycheck. I can't support my family. I think that's pretty crappy.
Agreed.
Next up is Haneda slots. So we talked about Delta and their Haneda switcheroos and what they're trying to do and what they're trying to get the DOT and Japan to sign on to. It sounds like someone objected.
Yeah, United Airlines said, F that.
I'm pretty sure we called that, right?
Yeah. We knew United was going to object. Hawaiian did not. Hawaiian also, it turns out, supported the flexibility the first time around.
Okay.
So that's less surprising.
Why do you think Hawaiian's so open to it? Like, they may get some more slots out of this?
No, they won't. But if Delta gets its way, no one gets more slots. Everybody keeps what their existing portfolios. I don't know why Hawaiian would want flexibility unless it thinks eventually maybe it might move some of its operations out of Honolulu to one of its other smaller airports.
Yeah, I just don't see that happening. I mean, I guess you could make a case that
so technically they own it. One of their slots is for 3 days a week from Kona, maybe, or Maui. I don't remember which. A different airport. They sort of split it between Honolulu and a secondary airport. But United basically came back and said, A, they expect full return of demand this summer, and expect that, basically calls out Delta for talking only about demand up through March, well before the restrictions were lifted, which we talked about last week. And also, there's some great, here we go, quote, Delta's proposal is without merit and is totally arbitrary. But what is for certain is that Delta's proposed pilot program is tailor-made to benefit Delta's financial performance. Basically calling out that it has nothing to do with, benefiting consumers and communities and shippers as it always has been, rather than carrier financial performance. United wants Houston access, and they say Guam also, which seems stupid, but whatever. It's it'll be interesting to see what the DOT does. I'm still not sure how the DOT can get away with coming back and saying, yeah, you're right, we should just... It didn't... Our earlier analysis that was based on providing the best service for the most number of people through diversification of gateways doesn't matter anymore. As long as there's enough different airlines operating enough flights, that's okay. I mean, I see what's being asked for.
Yeah, I get the desire for Houston access. I mean, that kind of makes sense, right? They've got a Narita flight, and ANA has a Narita flight. I could see that being an ask and reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, listen, United sent in letters from the mayors of Guam and Houston, and it's rebuttal filing.
I mean, that's clearly we should listen to the mayors.
Yeah, they're not messing around though. They they brought backup.
The big guns. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, do you think it's like a toss-up whether or not the DOT goes?
I'd say it's 65-35 is how I'd put the odds of it not happening.
I mean, Delta's going to be pissed though if this doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, they're gonna have to. They're probably gonna have to give up their port. So that's the other thing that United points out. Delta's gonna probably end up giving away the Portland slot.
Come on, Jow.
So, well, it's got to be a U.S. carrier.
Damn it.
And it won't be Portland. Sorry. Delta is only selling full Y. So the current waiver extends through the end of the summer season, which is last weekend in October. If you look, and so those flights are currently not on sale because they're not being operated. They have to be operated in the future, and so for October 30th or whatever going forward, Delta is currently selling round trip Y for $10,600.
So that no one buys it.
Right. And whether they're doing that to artificially suppress demand or to demonstrate, or just to not have any bookings so they don't have any to worry about rebooking later and refunds is unclear, but it's got to be one of those.
I think I'm just going to buy a refundable $10,000 fare and see what happens.
Yes, I always like loaning airlines $10,000 for fun.
Maybe I'll just book a reward on it or something, just to see what happens. I mean, I'm interested to see what happens. I think it's a big loss for Portland. Like, honestly,
Sure.
If this goes through, I think, Portland has a large Japanese. There's a fascination with Japanese tourists in Portland for some reason. I don't get it, but whatever.
The gardens are nice.
Yeah, the gardens are great. But I think there's a lot of anime and things set in the Pacific Northwest. I think there's I don't know. Everyone I talk to, they love Portland from Japan.
Yeah.
So I think it's a loss from that perspective. It would be interesting if a U.S. carrier said, "Okay, we'll start it." I'm looking at you, American. If you came in and said, "We'll operate Arita," I think that would be kind of awesome. Or if United came in and said, "Yeah, we'll take a 788," or Hawaiian came in, "We'll take a 788." We'll do that. I think it'd be kind of funny. So, yeah, have at it. Tell me about the DOT customer rights. This actually might happen.
Well, sure. This is the Buttigieg and Biden came out and they made hay, if you will, about this last week, basically talking up, we're going to have customer protections for real. And there were zero details. Okay. The airline's at fault. We're going to hold them to task. Okay. How? Well, we're working on putting that set of recommendations together. Maybe, the airline will be required to give you real money or cash or either real money or credits or points. Well, which one? We're working on that. Maybe they'll require to provide you hotels and food. Okay. Who's deciding whether the airline's at fault? There's just a lot of uncertainty about what's actually being proposed.
Yeah.
And it's going to come through as a notice of proposed rulemaking because it'll happen through, I'm sure it'll be processed through the DOT's, the same ruling of full fare advertising and all that stuff, misleading, I forget what they call it. There's some special set of words they use for it, but it'll be under that, so it'll have to go through comment period and all this other crap, and that's going to take forever. The airlines will drag their feet on it. They've already put out statements through IATA and through Airlines for America explaining that this is just going to make everything more expensive and, airlines will go out of business and prices will get much higher. Never mind that it works fine in Europe. And they're going to fight it tooth and nail, so that's going to take forever. And, 2 years from now, we may have a different administration. So who the hell knows if it'll actually happen.
So this is as likely as Real ID. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Real ID is actually going to happen at some point.
At some point.
I'm less convinced that this is.
Okay.
I certainly don't know in a way that projects strong and useful rights.
I'm a little disappointed that it was kind of half baked when they made the announcement. I think that's a disappointing bit.
I'm very disappointed.
I think that could have been if you'd been much clearer on what it is that we're protecting and what is the value to customers and things, making it a clear message as to why this is important. I think that would have been the first stepping stone to get over all the hurdles that you're going to face over the next year and a half to 2 years to get this through. I get the public on board with it, and eventually it'll happen. But not giving the customers real, tangible benefits, I think, is leaving you at a spot where you're just fighting an uphill battle to get it past the airlines.
Yeah.
Ryanair MAX 10 orders. MAX 10s. Wow.
100 of them.
That's a lot.
150 firm, 150 options, the largest order in Ryanair history.
Are they basically replacing the fleet?
No, they're growing.
Okay.
Depending on, some replacements. They'll cycle out some of the old 800s. Their Lauda Air subsidiary flies Airbus, so this would probably replace those as well.
I mean, I always forget out loud.
And it's interesting. They're going to do, I want to say 228 seats on board.
Wow.
Max is 230. So, you know, they're being generous and giving a couple back. But yeah, it's an interesting one. There's a lot of questions. Actually, you know, whatever. Ryanair's going to put a bunch of people on planes and fly them around, and that'll be efficient. The plane will get certified eventually. The deliveries are scheduled for 2027 through 2033, I think.
Okay.
So a little ways down the line, enough time for Boeing to get the manufacturing shit sorted out. One of the real interesting challenges, and this, you know, airlines have experienced this as they've grown, is how do you keep quick turns?
With that many people on board.
With that many people, right? There's just, at some point, that many people on a single aisle, you can't do a 25-minute turn anymore.
Yep.
And yes, you can move more people, and Ryanair does fly to some airports that are actually slot restricted in real cities, not the hinterlands, and so that's a challenge, right? Dublin, one of the big bases, is, you know, slot controlled, and so
they want to fit as many as they can,
getting as many passengers in as they can. You know, are they going to need extra buses, and do the airports that they serve have those extra buses to move people around? There's a lot of logistics around putting 15% more people on every plane, but they seem ready to do it. So, yay!
Yeah, it's that's an interesting one. The MAX 10s, I mean, they're really betting a lot there on the MAX 10s getting delivered and certified. I mean, like you said, you're pretty sure it's going to happen.
Sure,
but it still takes a little bit of faith, right, to place a bunch of firm orders.
You know, I mean,
large sums of money.
It's not all the money yet, and I'm sure there's a clause that if the 10s don't happen, they can take 8s or 9s and whatever. But you know, the real challenge is in many ways, A, Ryanair, much like Southwest, very happy with their single fleet type. And B, how do you get 300 delivery slots that quickly? Even if you wanted to, could Airbus give them to you? And, you know, 5 years from now, 4 years from now, and for Ryanair, yeah, Airbus would do it.
Yeah.
But it's not to say it would be easy.
Yeah, fair enough.
To build that many A321s instead.
Yep. Philippine Air A350-1000.
A350-1000. They put in an order for 9, which isn't a huge number, but it's going to extend capacity and range for U.S. East Coast, which are mostly served by 77Ws today.
Yep.
And they also mentioned potentially bringing back nonstop service to Europe with them.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And with this order, my recollection is that the 777s are the only Boeing planes still in the Philippine Airlines fleet. So.
Yeah, because they do Manila JFK with the 77Ws.
And Toronto, I think. Yeah. But they could become an all-Airbus carrier.
That's a big loss for Boeing.
Yeah, as this transitions. And, you know, part of that I have to imagine is 777X is just not ready yet. So
they want that range.
Yeah, they want the long haul, or the not ultra, but the very long haul flights. So it's also interesting they were talking, you know, Philippine Airlines, their A350-900s ended up at Lufthansa. Right, they had some planes that they sold off, and they're sold off delivery slots for, and I don't remember if they had already been delivered or not, but Lufthansa took them and basically is operating them with the Philippine Airlines interiors until the Allegris cabin retrofits come along. And so there's that like weird sub fleet of 350-900s flying for Lufthansa right now. I think there's 5 of them, and it's just a weird timing situation with COVID and everything else of, you know, having to give up those planes likely cheaper than they wanted to, and now paying closer to full price. But
yeah, it's interesting. I was on a Lufthansa flight not too long ago, and I then looked up, like, the 787s have the new or the interim business class seat, right?
Yeah. And
then these A350s, there's certain ones that have what I would call a better business class seat than what Lufthansa typically offers.
Yeah,
I didn't get either one of them. So
yeah, it's not the footsies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, interesting stuff. I mean, I think it's kind of telling. I mean, Philippine, maybe it's Cebu Pacific operates like ATRs, I think. But then other than that, it looks like Philippine Airlines only operates Airbus besides those 77Ws. So yeah, you're right. Like, they would become an all Airbus flight, or all Airbus, you know, airline. It's kind of. I think it's pretty crappy for Boeing to lose out.
Yeah. They don't have a plane though. I mean, they get the range, but not the capacity.
Yep. Tell me about Hawaiian 787 suites.
These are actually looking pretty nice. They're 3 years late, but they look pretty nice.
So what's happening? Like they're getting a suites product?
Yeah, they just announced their interiors for their 787s that are going to be finally delivered starting in November and probably flying in early 24 for passengers. 34 seats up front. It's the Adient, which is a Boeing partnership, sort of pseudo-subsidiary operation.
Okay.
121 reverse herringbone, doors, very much Hawaiian themed with, tied to Polynesian history and all that other fun stuff. I am flippant about that stuff a lot because most airlines do it very poorly. Hawaiian actually did a very good job with it. I'm impressed by the way they're doing it, but I'm still going to sort of run past it quicker than I should. There are some things that are a little silly, like they talk about having a star field in the sky on the ceiling to represent how the Polynesians navigated the islands back in the day when they were sailing. And it's not dynamic. It's just some holes punched in ceiling tiles with lights behind them.
Yeah, I see it now.
Which is fine, but they also, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Lehoku, I think, and it means field of stars is what they're branding the front cabin as. So in some ways taking a nod from Polaris, I would argue, from United. But
which, by the way, there's a Polaris restaurant above the Hyatt Regency.
Okay.
Just called Polaris. Didn't someone at United do some research? So
show your 1K card and tell them you need a table. Free drinks, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think this product, it looks fine. Like it looks like a solid business product from the East Coast. I think it's going to be a solid, offering.
Yeah, I actually think it looks really nice. They're putting IFE back in, which had disappeared on the 330s, which is a big win.
Yep.
So that's nice. It's 266 seats in the back, and only 34 up front. 79 of them are the extra legroom seat.
Yeah, that's what makes me wonder. Are they going to keep some of these on the West Coast route? Because they use a lot of A330s on some of the West Coast because of coach or economy demand. So I could see them doing this even to Portland. Like they use an A330 on Portland, Honolulu, but like Las Vegas, LA, even San Francisco probably.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of high capacity demand in some of those markets that they'll fill with these.
Yeah, and that extra legroom seat, they have AC outlets, which is nice too.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. The regular economy only has USB ports, and if you want an AC outlet, you got to buy the extra legroom.
Yeah, it's fascinating because it's USB A and USB C in regular economy. It's like, okay, you guys installed that, but you couldn't install a power port.
Hey, every plug counts, man. The other thing I think is interesting about it is if you look at, it's hard to tell from the photos and the renderings they shared, but it's like you can sort of see it in the headrest in economy. Mm-hmm. The economy comfort section is mostly the outboard triplets, and the regular legroom is in the center. So it's almost like they put an extra row in the center section versus the outside triplets.
Yeah, I do see I see the gap. It's hard to make it out in the photos, but you can kind of tell that it's.
If you look at the headrests, there's a different trim on them in the photos. You can sort of see they get that the different headrest trim goes back like 8 or 10 rows on the outside, but only 1 row in the middle.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
Which means if you want a window seat or don't want to, just for whatever reason, don't want to be in that middle section, more passengers are more likely to have to pay for that luxury.
Super interesting.
Yeah,
that's cool. I'm interested to see how this goes.
Yeah. The other thing I will note that's just amusing to me is that the timestamps on all the images that they shared is from 2021.
So they knew about this.
Oh yeah, they announced the order in 2018. They announced that they had chosen Adient for the seating in 2019, with deliveries expected in 2021. These planes are at least 2 years late at this point.
Yeah.
So, oopsie.
Whoops. Speaking of Hawaii, well, actually, it's not Hawaii. I mean, it's native.
Yeah.
I think that's the important part. Alaska Airlines has a livery replacing Salmon 30 Salmon.
Yeah, I actually like this one a lot. It's a sort of a native version of the salmon renderings.
Yep.
Salmon drawings.
I think it's a good way to put it. And it's really cool because it was, I mean, I think it's beautifully painted with the colors. And I think the only complaint I have is that the logo seems to get a little lost. The Alaska wording seems to get a little lost with it. That's the only thing else I noticed.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it's gorgeous.
Yeah, agreed. And I don't really care about the word Alaska on the side, so I'm cool with that.
Yeah, you'll know which plane this is, right? When it pulls up to the gate, you're like, oh, that's that plane. So,
yeah.
But very cool.
Yeah. One of our friends is booked on one of the JetBlue flights to Amsterdam after the season changes, where they don't necessarily have slots yet. That's cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We'll have to see how that works out for them.
Yeah, +1. So anyway, that's an interesting situation. Just learned that. Does this flight can operate? I'm like, I don't know.
Like it's we'll toss a coin here and tell you in 6 months.
Yeah.
What about JD Power and their satisfaction results?
So, right, this is the annual survey. They do it. They release the results, and the airlines really, really like being the number one. Southwest did not get screwed owing to the meltdown over Christmas.
Really?
Yeah, they're still the winner.
I mean, is the traveling public that all we care about is we got where we went eventually? Is that the measure now?
I don't know. I think Southwest won for the economy and basic economy segment for the second year in a row, besting Delta and JetBlue. JetBlue used to win this all the time. They had it like 10 years in a row, and the fact that they don't anymore has got to sting a little bit. I also don't understand how they talk about premium economy seats for Alaska Airlines. Like, what does that even mean? But Southwest really came out miles ahead. And what I think it's interesting about it is I'm trying to find the numbers exactly here. It's of the methodology, and it's 7,774 passengers were surveyed. Passengers must have flown on a major North American airline within the past month of completing the survey, and the survey ran between March 2022 and March 2023. And if you figure there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 airlines listed here.
Mm-hmm.
700 passengers per airline based on that, assuming they distribute it evenly, which I don't know that they necessarily do, but statistically you should get close to that. And then, so that's like 2 a day, right? So that because they spread the survey out over such a long period of time, the 3 weeks of hell that Southwest had,
maybe
yes, that'll drag its score down, but that's, only, 3 out of 50, right? That's 5 or 6% of its total votes.
Yeah.
So I think that's that's part of why that happened. That's probably good, right? For what they're trying to rank, it is an overall, what are you most likely to get? And that never should have happened at Southwest. There's a lot of things we've talked about way too much about why things went wrong and how they should have prevented it. But it's, one of those things where I think ultimately should they completely lose because they had that bad situation. More often than not, that's not going to be the situation. So true. 75% of planes get where they're going on time every day, but we still talk about the others way more.
Yeah, fair enough. It's interesting to me who gets chosen. How much credence to give to these surveys. But
this one is closer to legitimate than a lot of the other ones out there, in my opinion.
Fair enough. I think that's the show. We're going to talk a little bit about some award pricing idiocy, and some order rumors, and my experience with United Fries, and crashing a plane on purpose and going to jail for it. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, maybe. If you're a Patreon subscriber, just stick around for that. That'll be in the bonus for you. To our listeners, if you want to support the show, you can sign up on Patreon. Leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll talk next time. Happy travels.
Take care.